Good afternoon and welcome back to the channel Overland Italy. I'm Jay Butler, your host. Today is Sunday, March the 17th, 2024. And today is part 5 and the conclusion of our ongoing series. We're going to be showing you our off-road capabilities of this vehicle, the remaining modifications that we have made during this series, and all of the accessories and benefits that we've added to this vehicle so that you can decide, is this the best Land Rover Discovery 3 or 4 overlanding vehicle in the world? Beginning at the front of the vehicle, we chose to install an ARB deluxe front bumper. These are designed and manufactured in Australia. Originally, one of the big motivations for ARB to create these bumpers is because of the amount of death and injury that occur in the country because of kangaroos running into the road. And I've watched several videos on people describing those types of accidents, and they said, you would think that you would have time to stop or swerve or move, but they come out of nowhere so quickly that in addition to the injury to the animal or death of the animal, just the total destruction to the front of their vehicles, they oftentimes will come up and over into the windshield and kill people quite frequently. So that was one of the primary reasons that ARB created these bumpers in Australia. Now, of course, here in Italy, we don't have any kangaroos, as I'm sure you can imagine, but these front bumpers provide a wide variety of services in addition to just animals running out into the road. First and foremost, it gives you a mounting position for your winch. There are some winch systems which will be mounted kind of into the vehicle using stock bumpers or other types of bumpers. This one happens to be a slightly more forward design, enabling us to use a worn 12,000-pound winch with a 30-meter or 100-foot synthetic rope. There's a lot of engineering and design and crash tests and regulations that have to be passed the world over to be able to install a bumper like this. And so ARB is quite renowned for their products. We've used them for decades, and I'm very comfortable with them. I like the looks. In addition to the full grille bumper up top, this I guess bull bar. We also have the stock fog lamps, an extra set of turn signals, which is pretty neat. Plenty of air to be able to come into the radiator and keep the engine cool. There's a slot right up on top so you can grab this little handle to allow the winch to open and close as needed. And also we have mounted underneath skid plates. There's actually 2 of them, one here in the front so you can use this recovery point. This is not just to help pull your vehicle up onto a recovery vehicle. Like if the vehicle is going to be towed or flatbedded, on a vehicle like this, you'd have to flatbed it because it's permanent 4-wheel drive. This is a recovery point, a proper full-on recovery point, which we have used many times. So there's one panel right here that comes up to about just past the axle, and then a second one, a very large panel that continues to go backwards and finishes at about the steering wheel. So the entire underbody of this vehicle is fully protected where all of your most vulnerable and fragile components would be to rocks and other things as the vehicle is moving off-road and coming down and hitting large objects, which can just really cause tremendous damage to your vehicle. So it enables you to, go up riverbeds, pretty extreme off-road paths.
Because I just drove over some terrain in my Land Rover that I didn't even think was possible. I was prepared to get my land anchor out and the winch and pull myself out of this. And I just thought, hey, let's test what I thought was the extreme of what this vehicle might be capable of doing. So I'm gonna stop the video, turn the camera around, and show you what this car just went over.
The camera's not doing it justice. We're going in and out of 3-foot ruts. And it hardly, well, it does feel like the car's moving. Good Lord. And this ground is soaking wet from the rain. Okay, this is gonna get hairy. The undercarriage just leveled all of that.
Although because of the size and the weight and the use of this vehicle for its overlanding purposes, I don't take this vehicle to extreme off-road locations because it's not just a four-wheel drive vehicle. I wanted to make the four-wheel drive capabilities as fortified as possible, but given its overall use, it's not just a pure four-wheel drive vehicle by itself. So where a four-wheel drive vehicle would be able to go, I probably wouldn't because of the weight of this vehicle, which is at its limit 3,500 kilograms. The manufacturing limit on this is 3,716, if memory serves, on what's called the libretto. But another reason that this underpaneling is of such great benefit and necessity is for tall grass. One major problem that you can have off-roading or overlanding is when your engine is really hot and you're passing through tall grass, and we've had videos where it's coming up over the hood of the vehicle, that grass can get caught, can get stuck, and then will catch fire. And once that ignites, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to put it out. So having this paneling and this plating that goes underneath has been remarkable in that regard. Probably about the only aesthetic thing that we did were to have these little plastic covers on the lights in the front and the back. It really serves no purpose other than aesthetics, but I think it looks pretty cool. The other modification that we made to our vehicle to turn it into what we believe to be the best overlanding vehicle possible is to remove the air suspension and to put in these ARB heavy load coilover suspension system. Now, I think that we have been met with the most amount of resistance and contention and dispute over this choice. Some Land Rover owners are absolutely emphatic that it is the air suspension which makes or breaks this vehicle. My contention is it's the airbag system which breaks. And there are people out there who disagree with that, and that's wonderful. You know, it's wonderful to agree to disagree. But it is hard to argue that this is going to somehow break on you or be less reliable than the air suspension. That's why I have this. Reliability, peace of mind, longevity. But there are arguments, and there's very valid arguments, that having the air suspension in here will be better performance. And I have to admit, there's a legitimate argument for that. It self-stabilizes, it self-levels. You don't have to worry about pulling out your max tracks and placing it underneath the vehicle to try to get it level when you want to camp at night. The air suspension is going to do that automatically. The air suspension is quite amazing when it works, but when it breaks, although you can go into limp mode and there's other hacks that people do to try to get around that, I'm sorry, it's devastating. It's absolutely devastating. And I've experienced what it's like to have the air suspension fail, and I can tell you, it sucks. It's horrible, no good, very bad, awful day. So I didn't go with a terrain tamer. I didn't even go with a normal coilover. Again, this is the ARB heavy load. It's the thickest, most robust coilover that I'm aware of anywhere on the market in the world. And they've performed brilliantly. I'm incredibly happy with them. Do they perform arguably at the level of an airbag? No, they don't. But I know that when I go off into the proverbial bush, into, reasonably intense remote locations, I have the peace of mind that I'm going to be able to come back home with this and not have a failure, which you simply have that risk when you're running an airbag suspension. So anyway, that was my choice. You're welcome to agree or disagree with it. But I do want to say, I mean, look at the size of my thumb. They're the thickness of my thumb, which is incredible. And I picked these up from British Atlantic. So very, very happy with them. These are our rock and tree sliders that we installed from Land Rover Passion. These serve several different functions. The metal on this comes this far back, more than 10 centimeters underneath the vehicle, and protects the entire undercoating of your car. We can also use this for our high lift jack to change any of the 4 tires. And also from protecting, to an extent, your side panels on the vehicle. Now, of course, if something comes up above it, there's really not much that you can do to protect that. Otherwise, you're just not gonna be able to open up your doors, right? It's pretty hard to have a cage that comes around like this, and unless you're just dealing with some ridiculous, purely off-road, roll cage bar system. They bolted straight into the manufactured stock positions. They're a little weighty, I suppose, but they're great for steps when you want to get up and reach something above the vehicle. They're great for steps, for getting in and out of the car. Tremendous underbody protection, good extension on the sides while still being legal. You're certainly within your mirrors. You have a lot more room even when your mirrors are closed. So very glad that we have this to protect this side panel, because on a Land Rover, this is all plastic, and the piece that was under here was just all plastic. And so you go off-road a little bit and you're just gonna destroy that plastic piece that comes stock with the vehicle. So again, these are the tree and rock sliders from Land Rover Passion out of Milan, Italy. There are other people who make a similar type, but these have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 connections to the vehicle, and yeah, incredibly robust for our needs. Been very happy with them. So for our rear bumper, we went with a tactical 4x4 out of California. I can assure you it was no small feat to have this puppy shipped from California to Italy. However, the reason that this component was so critical to our vehicle is because normally you don't have a full-size spare with this car. It comes with like a skinny little donut tire that would mount up underneath the vehicle. And there's like this little crank, the tire drops down, and that's your little donut spare. So number one, I wanted to be able to have a full-size, proper spare tire. Speaking of tires, we're using a BF Goodrich mud terrain This is a KM3, and the sizing on this, that's the pressure right here. This is a 265 60 R18. The vehicle basically has to have 18-inch rims because of the size of the brakes. It has an E or sidewall load rating, which is basically the highest that you can get for the vehicle. And they've just performed brilliantly. I couldn't be happier with the tread. So, this 4x4 tactical bumper has your little handle right here. It just opens up. So they leave this nice large opening. If you wished to tow with the vehicle, you can use the stock towing unit, which is right here. This is the stock one. This is a recovery point. Some people think that this is just so that the vehicle could, you could have a hook clicked on to it to pull the vehicle up onto a recovery flatbed. No, I'm sorry, you're wrong. That's incorrect. This is a full-on recovery point. This is designed for winching, recovery straps, kinetic straps, full-on recovery point. I don't know how to better say it other than that. Also, by making use of this rear bumper and replacing the stock plastic one, it also certainly adds additional elements of safety in the event of a rear collision. But we were also able to install the ARB Long Ranger secondary fuel tank, which adds another 104 liters of fuel to the vehicle, more than doubling our range. Overall, I've been very pleased with this tactical 4x4 rear bumper, and they're not sponsored or anything of that nature, but I would certainly highly recommend it if you're considering it for your Land Rover Discovery 3 or 4. One of the honorable mentions that I wanted to include in this video on our overlanding vehicle is how to incorporate a Yeti 1500X into your overlanding vehicle. One of the reasons why I like using Yeti so much is their products are solid, reliable, albeit a little pricey, but you get what you pay for. And this Yeti 1500X can be recharged either from the alternator from your engine as the motor is running, or from your solar panels. So it's a fantastic way to be able to have an all-in-one where you have USB ports, USB-C ports, as well as either 230 volts if you're in Europe or 120 if you're in the United States. I also use what's called a dongle, which allows you to use the one port for 2 extension cords. Now, the Yeti 1500X has a maximum 3,500 watt power surge and sustained power of 2,000 watts. And it's another source of power in case my primary system goes dead, or as a system unto itself. One of the noteworthy modifications that we made to the vehicle during this series is the manner in which we mounted our Garmin Tread 8-inch overlanding navigation system. When you put the key into the vehicle and turn it on, it will automatically power up. And when you need to shut the vehicle down, and you do, you just have to turn off manually. However, once you unclip this and you remove it by its magnetic holder, we took off, and by we I mean me, this whole front dash pops off. There's clips and the whole front comes off. When I removed the entire back panel, I put a steel plate underneath the dash and was able to mount this ball unit through the dash, and then the wiring goes straight in here and is connected to the vehicle's stock fuse. So this has been incredibly sturdy, really frees up the vehicle and just makes it very easy to mount and clip back in. About the only negative thing that I have with this Garmin thus far is if you're going to be driving around without this unit on the vehicle, let's say you want to pass through a customs and you just don't want this being displayed to the world, or you are making use of it in another vehicle, you're going to want this faceplate. Don't throw this out. This thing has like metal components in here. It's difficult to describe, and when you're driving, it rattles to the point where you just want to grab a shotgun and blow it away, okay? So this faceplate, by just putting it on, alleviates everything and it's completely silent. So anyway, food for thought. If you do purchase one of these, don't throw this faceplate out. So this mount was really a nice improvement to what we had before with the suction cup. The other noteworthy modification that I wanted to point out is this 67 design mount that we use for our DJI cameras. They have the speed clips up here. This one I normally have pointed out to the front of the vehicle, and then this one over here is pointed toward me when I need to do a driver shot. It's also pretty neat because I have multiple DJI cameras, and so I can be getting forward views and facial views at the same time. So that's worked out quite well. So this is their Series 55 model, and I basically just had to have the courage to drill 3 bolts through this section of the dash, and then these bolts come through underneath and just tighten down on the bottom. But they have different lengths for these arms. It's pretty neat, legitimate carbon fiber arms, and I found them to be exceedingly helpful and handy. It also makes a really great place to lay your hat. Now, if you were a cowboy, you could have a cowboy hat here, but you know, I'm in Italy, so. Lastly, this is our Safari Snorkel. A snorkel is also a raised air intake. So when you're driving in a convoy, even if there's only one vehicle ahead of you, it will kick up a tremendous amount of dust. And that dust has got to go through your air filtration system before being fed into your engine. So the purpose of the raised air intake is to be able to do just that, to raise the location of where the air is being brought into the vehicle. Now, the difference between a snorkel, which is also a raised air intake, from a raised air intake, which is not a snorkel, is that this is completely sealed for water. For example, if you're going to be going into a river and that first entry part of the river is quite deep and then levels out, you can have water come up and over the hood and then settle back down. So if the water, I mean, you're not normally gonna wade, okay, through something that's this high. Your vehicle is going to be flooded, okay? But in the event that water crested or came up and over temporarily and then settled back down, you don't want that water going into the engine. Not every raised air intake is sealed. That's the difference. So the reason why the head for this is faced backwards, some believe or prefer it to be facing forwards, others believe it to be facing backwards. I started with it forward just to kind of experiment with it a little bit, but a tree branch caught one of the plastic faces of this protective grille. And the other reason is I was thinking, well, wait a minute, if the purpose of the raised air intake is to take the location of the air and bring it up where it can suck in better air, because dust is billowing this direction, if this unit is facing forward, it's still just going to be pulling all of that dirt in directly. Whereas if it's turned around, it's not going to be pulling in nearly as much, which is kind of the whole purpose for this. Also, if this head unit is facing forward, you're going to be getting different amount of, I don't know if compression is the right word, but when you're at speed, let's say highway speeds, you now have air being kind of rammed or forced down into the engine that would not have otherwise normally been there. And the electrical systems and the design of the engine wasn't built or designed to anticipate that additional air being kind of pushed down into it. So also by having it facing in this direction, it's a more natural way for air to be able to come into the engine that's more in alignment with the original design. So I believe that this is the last final component outside of the high lift jack, which we've covered previously, our max tracks, which we've covered on a number of occasions. We have our compressor so that we can air down and air up our tires. We've covered that previously. So yeah. We've also done a video on our ARB high intensity lights as well. That was one of our earlier videos that we ever did. So yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really hope that you've enjoyed our 5-part series on is this the best Land Rover Discovery 3 or 4 overlanding vehicle in the world. Now, if you agree with us, then we thank you and appreciate you supporting the channel. If you vehemently disagree with us, we thank you for supporting the channel. And at the very least, we hope that you've enjoyed the videos to improve your own vehicle and make your overlanding experience that much better. Moving forward, we're very excited to share with you that in the next 1 to 2 weeks, we're going to be taking delivery on our Iveco VM90 overlanding vehicle. So as we build that vehicle out over the coming months, we're going to be sharing it all with you. Please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Your effort to click that little subscription button takes virtually no effort, but makes a big difference to our channel and our ability to continue to provide you with this content for your enjoyment and entertainment. So please be sure to join us as we take this incredible military veicolo multifunzionale, a multi-purpose military vehicle with literal military tires, 9 inches wide, 36 inches tall, with unsurpassed four-wheel drive capabilities and a full-on living quarter section in the back with a full-size bed. As we then take that vehicle and travel around Europe, Africa, and Asia. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a lot more to come for you. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.